Wayo. Making soil blocks. I got the two most common sizes of soil block makers. And I started with this a few years back, and I wasn't impressed with it. And I said, well, let me try it again. And the reasons why I weren't impressed with it is it's too many ingredients to make the blocks when you look at the recipe for making soil blocks. And what this is supposed to do is supposed to replace, using like the trays. Hold on a second, let me show you. Well, let me show you like this. See, that's how the mini blocks press out right there, okay? And this is how the bigger blocks, the 2-inch blocks, this is how they press out, okay? Now, what I wasn't impressed with, let me get the trays right quick, hold up. Now, this is your common trays, like your starters, right? I kind of like these better, honestly. It's less work, I just leave that right there in case somebody else needs to see when they come in. It's kind of like it's less work. So right now you can go and you can get 720 of them for about $13. 720 sales. So they're gonna send you enough of these to make 720, right? So you can get that, you can buy that for about $13-14. And you can get these things for free. You just go to a convenience store where you see like a bunch of them out there, like you're just overflowing near the trash can, and you go in and you ask them, say, hey man, can I get some of those plastic trays out there? And they almost always will tell you yes. Well, I can hold like 60 sales in this tray. And that's pretty simple. But when your plants grow up, the roots will wrap around, inside of there. And there's more transplant shock, they say. I personally haven't experienced it. And probably because I abandoned it too soon. But I said, let me break out my blocks again and let me see what's happening. Now, most of your soil block recipes contain either vermiculite or what's that other one? It sounds like it's similar to vermiculite, but right now I can't call the name of it. But it begins with a P. Then they'll have like coconut coir, and instead of the coconut coir, they'll use the peat moss. And peat moss, when I first got these blocks, these soil block makers, when I first bought these, peat moss was $14 for 3 cubic feet. And peat moss is a resource that there's only so much of it. It's made over millions of years of moss settling in a bog someplace, and they basically dig it out. And you mix that with your soil because it holds moisture well. It holds the right amount of moisture. Once it gets wet, it's actually hydrophobic, meaning that it repels water. But once it gets wet, it holds a certain amount of moisture and then no more, and everything else passes through it. So they mix peat moss, vermiculite or the other one, they mix compost, and then they put it through a sifter, and they get all the chunks out and stuff, and they get it down to a certain, you know, fineness, and then you wet it, and you want to wet it according to what they say. You want to wet it to the point where when you squeeze it, a little bit of water comes out. So I'm probably about there right now, but I didn't sift nothing. I'm not sifting nothing. I'm not buying a whole bunch of stuff because that's really not sustainable. Even the coconut core is even more expensive. I don't remember what it was when the first time I saw it, but it was cost prohibitive per plant, in my opinion. Then the the other ingredients people put in there, they'll put in green sand and azomite and this and that and the other, and ironite and any old damn thing they'll stick up in there. I mean, gardening ain't supposed to be that complicated, straight up. Gardening ain't supposed to be that complicated. For me, anyway. So for other people, if that's what you're into and you want to spend that kind of time doing it, then and that kind of money on it, hey, do it your way. Some people drive Mercedes, some people drive Chevrolet, so it's all about what you like. But for me, gardening ain't supposed to be that complicated. So what I'm trying is this Miracle-Gro Organics container mix. They have the container mix and they have the in the ground mix. The in the ground mix basically just has more like little sticks and stuff in it. So I bought a bag of something else, but I got it over at the other property, and I don't remember seeing really any sticks in it, and it held moisture real good. So I think I'm gonna try that. But what a good block is supposed to do is it's supposed to hold together when you water it. Okay, let me see something right quick. And these, by no stretch of the imagination, should be considered good blocks. Okay, because this is only a test that I'm doing. I already don't like that. That looks like garbage. Hold on a second. Let me take another shot here, guys. And I believe I got these a little too wet. Okay, so this is a single block. Now here's what I want to happen. I'm figuring this block might not be perfect, but once it's rooted out, roots are in there and everything. Children of Syria is and wants to live. You need to type something in the bottom and tell me what it is that you want to talk about, man. I'm not going to bring you on here to do a competition or nothing like that, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm talking about gardening right now. But anyway, these blocks, what I'm hoping that'll happen is that once the roots grow all through it, that'll add additional stability. So all I'm looking for it to do is just to stay together long enough to get rooted out. And what happens is the roots grow to the edge and they stop. They call that air pruning. They grow to the edge of it and they stop. They don't grow all around in a circle, and then you transplant these blocks. Now, here's another difference. Well, let me try this little test, because this is one of the tests that I saw them do on YouTube on the video, and then they catch it. And if it holds together, then it's pretty decent. Well, I did that. It's pretty decent. It's holding together. So this might work. But so I got 60 when I use the little plastic cells. And that plastic cell, that might last you anywhere from a year to 3 years, just depending on how delicate you are. Because every time you push a plant up out of the cell, you're basically breaking the bottom of it. Okay? Let me see here. So in here, I got 40. Right? So that's another downside to the blocks. I can put more plants in with the cells than I can with the blocks, but that's not a really big deal because I have like probably 30 something trays, and you know, I got way more trays than I need, and I can always get more trays, so that's not a big deal. The other thing to consider is time. You know, I got a hill of soil over there. I'm not gonna show it to y'all because I have to take the phone off the thing, but it's anywhere from 2 to 3 cubic yards. Okay, and a cubic yard is 27 cubic feet. And for those of you that might not know, a cubic foot, of course, is 1 foot up, 1 foot sideways, 1 foot wide, 1 foot long. Okay, you multiply all three of those dimensions together. So if you had a box and you filled it full of soil, that's a cubic foot. If you stack 27 of them together, that's a cubic yard. So I got 2 to 3 cubic yards of soil over there. I need like twice as much soil conditioner when soil conditioner is basically like when they make compost and they got a bunch of little bitty pieces of bark and stick and some dirt or soil and all like that. That's basically soil conditioner. They sift that out. It's not quite a mulch. They add it to topsoil to make planting soil. So I need probably two times as much to go with that topsoil over there, and then I need about 3. I'll need at least a yard of compost to go with it, to give it the biology that I need. Because when I mix that topsoil with that soil conditioner, because of the wood that's in it, all that carbon that's in it, the very first thing that's going to happen is the carbon is going to start to suck the nitrogen out of the topsoil. The microbes that are hopefully in it will be in order to work with the carbon and everything in there, the nitrogen will be sort of like locked down, and the plant roots won't be able to get to it. That's why when you're gardening, like in your yard, especially, your first year or two is about building the quality of your soil. It's not about, most of the time if you keep gardening, your soil is supposed to get better in your yard when you're gardening in the ground. And I like gardening in the ground better than gardening in pots personally. So you're just building soil. That's the bottom line. So see if anybody typed anything. Sister 318, what's happening? What's happening? Home girl. Who we got in the building? Who stayed around? Who's up in there? So I think I'm just gonna make one tray of these little ones, because I really don't. When I was successful at making the little ones, I didn't like them too much. But the little one is supposed to fit inside of the big one. Let me show you what I mean. Oh yeah, I can show you right here. So this is a single little block, right? And that is that. You see the hole in there? This goes in here. That's the next size up. So once your plant gets rooted in the little one, then you put it in the big one. Okay, here's the deal with that. That's a whole lot of damn work. You know, like, that's a lot of labor, man. Like, unnecessary labor compared to what? Just popping the plant out of the block and putting it, out of the tray, popping it out of the tray and putting it in the ground. You know, when you direct seed, your next step after direct seeding is most likely weeding. You know, but when you use starters, then your next step is transplanting. You know, you're gonna fill your trays. You're gonna put your seeds in there. You're gonna water it down. You're gonna let the plants grow up to a certain level, and then you're gonna transplant them. Okay, and then you get to weeding, right? So you're already adding some steps. So what's the payoff for adding the steps? The payoff is that you were able to start something ahead of time when you didn't have the ground space, maybe, or when the temperature wasn't right. You know, maybe you got a limited size garden and you wait, you know that your plants are not going to be finished. The plants that you have in there for, let's just say, your summer garden, they're not quite finished. You're not finished harvesting everything you want to harvest off of them. So you want to get ahead for your fall season. So you went ahead and you started these starters, and now when you're ready to take those the summer plants out, boom, your fall plants are ready to be transplanted right in. That's the payoff. You got a short growing climate. You know, you live in one of the zones, you know, up north where your winters are long. So you start your plants indoors or in a greenhouse, and then as soon as your last frost is over, you're not planting seeds, you're planting plants. That's the payoff. You know, but when you start adding more steps to it, to me, you're sort of diminishing the payoff. So I don't like that part about it either. But I said I got them already, and a lot of the people that I follow on YouTube, they really love these soil blocks. So I said, let me try them again. Another thing I don't like about this little one is there's really nothing to hold on to when you're making it. When you're making the blocks. Okay, when you go to press down, if you press down on this, then you're making your blocks shorter. Okay, if you press down, if your fingers accidentally press down on this, you're making your blocks shorter. So all you got is this little bitty space right here. So what I've been doing is like putting my hand on it like so. And then I get them. Comme ça. You see? So it's like all good in the hood at that point, but then you got the next issue is putting a little seed in each possible spot. That's the bane of the whole issue. That's, you know, it doesn't matter if you're in 72 cells, 200 cell, it doesn't matter when you got little bitty seeds and you need to put it in. to your trays or whatever, that is an absolute pain in the ass. But even more so when they're this close together, because let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So it's 20 in this little thing. So based upon that and what I got in here, like, this is a very good point. So listen to this, y'all. All right, so let me see. Well, it might not be as good a point as what I thought. So I guess I would probably have to get the trays that are actually made for this, or I'd have to let these tighten up a little bit. I'm not sure. But so based upon what I'm seeing here, let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, probably 4, 5, maybe 6. So 6 times 20 is 120. And then I got 3 going across. So that's what, 360? So if I got 360 cells to fill up in there, then I need to make a vacuum seeder, and if you want to know how to make a vacuum seeder, because vacuum seeders are kind of expensive, there's a guy, his name is Farmer Keith on YouTube. He has some fire content, and if you look up $50 vacuum seeder on YouTube, he has an excellent tutorial on how to make that. But that way you can custom make a seeder if you're handy. You know, if you're crafty or handy, you can custom make a seeder for whatever type of trays you're using, or soil blocks, however they line up. And basically you hook like a wet dry vacuum cleaner to it. It's a flat box, and the vacuum is sucking on the box, and on the top of the box there's holes, and the holes correspond would correspond where all your spaces are. So the seeds get caught in the hole, get vacuumed to the hole, and then any seeds that are left over, you pour them out. The vacuum is still running. You pour them out, you get them out of the box. Then you flip the box over on top of your trays, and you turn your vacuum off, and you give it a couple of taps, and all the seeds fall directly in the hole. So you're not tweezering or using the toothpick and spit method. Take a toothpick, dip it in your spit, and then touch a seed, and then wipe it on the hole. Anyway, when it gets like that, I'd rather just throw the seeds up there, sprinkle the soil on top, and then once they grow up, then you just thin them, because it's just a lot of tedious time, for me, that I'm just not interested in. Other people, like I say, you might find it relaxing, you might find it peaceful, or maybe you just really particular about everything that you do, and that's cool, So let's see what else we got. So far, I think this is gonna work, man. And people, I think it's gonna work good enough. Will it work excellent? I'm gonna have to do some videos and let y'all know what I experienced. But for me to do this, for this to be a solution for me, the plants have to hold together, and the block has to hold together through the whole experience. It has to come out of one bag. I'm not mixing a whole bunch of stuff together. I'm not sifting. I'm not doing all that extra work, because I'm figuring these plants are going to be in these blocks tops a month. So whatever amendments or nutrients or whatever, I'm gonna do that in the garden. Another thing, best garden I ever had. I grew cantaloupes like this big, and that's no lie to that. I grew some huge cantaloupes, not them little cantaloupes you see in the store that are a little smaller than a volleyball. These were like bigger than these were like soccer ball size. You know, soccer balls have like the youth sizes and the adult size. So this was like, these cantaloupes were like the size of the full size soccer ball or a little bit bigger, and they would jam it. And I grew everything else that you would grow in the spring. You know, beans and tomatoes, and cucumbers, etc. I grew a bunch of stuff, peppers. Everything was pushing. I did the lasagna garden, where a lot of people use straw, but again, my issue is what here is what. Unless you got straw, now you got to go get straw. If you got a source for it for free, makes a little bit more sense. But if you don't, now you got to go buy it. In my case, I got a big old bale of hay, a round bale of hay that was like rotting hay, and I made my layers out of that. And I went and got topsoil. And I did all of that with a shovel and a wheelbarrow off of a trailer. And it took me all day. And I thank God for that experience, because what I learned from that is that's a lot of damn work. And I don't want to build a garden the hardest possible way. The next part of the experience was, you know, all of the amendments that I bought and all of the watering that I did. And what I learned from that is that what came out of the garden was so expensive that it was not, it was not viable. And I thought about it. I said, man, that was some awesome food and everything. But like 1 month, and there were some other things going on too. Like my kids had a pool, had one of those inflatable ring top pools, and but 1 month I had just an outrageous water bill, like $500. Plus, I spent $400 in compost and the soil amendments and everything, all the stuff that I bought, plus all the labor I had in putting it in. It didn't work out. It didn't work out for me. So I said, in the past, people farmed or gardened, and they didn't have all of that. When I was a little kid, it was no going buying soil. When I would help my grandmother or watch anybody else with a garden, they didn't go buy bags of soil and all of that stuff. What they had was right there on the property. They double dug, or they would dig it up with like a pickmatic, you know what I'm saying? And they make their heels and everything. And then if they had fertilizer, if the fertilizer usually would come from people's animals, So like when I was a little kid in Southwest Louisiana, in the community I lived in, almost everybody had an animal that was other than like a dog or a cat. On the street where I lived, if there was 10 houses there, I would say probably 8 of those houses had either a pig or chickens or something like that. And there was not a rock road, it was a shale road. So it was a bunch of white shale all across the road there. And there was no azomite and vermiculite and all of this stuff. and they had wonderful gardens, you know. So I said, well, that's the type of gardening that I want to learn. You know, I don't want to learn the high input gardening, because if I'm going to do it like that and do the labor, it'd be one thing if I was putting all that money into it and I didn't have to do any labor. You know, that'd make a little bit more sense. But if I got to do a whole bunch of labor and I'm putting a bunch of money into it, I'm sort of defeating the purpose. And so what I did, the next few years, I started gardening with just what was there and a lot less amendments. And my production, especially the first year, was less. But after that, it was a lot less. After that, the production was less, but it was steady. And it was a lot cheaper. I watered when the plants absolutely needed water. I prepare the ground more or less by composting in place. You know, I would add my organic matter, you know, my leaves or grass clippings or whatever the case may be. I add that to the planting bed and I let it compost in place. I did a lot of that, and I overwintered things a lot of times. I extended the growing season, and I found that, you know, plants that are allowed to go to seed. I've told this story many times on here. Like, for instance, mustard greens, collard greens, those types of things. The reason why most people don't let that go to seed is because it sort of like takes a long time in the seed cycle. So yeah, that's right, Southwest Louisiana. It sort of takes a long time in the seed cycle. So it's taking up space in your garden. And so usually people just kind of like get rid of it. Well, I let it go to seed because I had never really watched it go to seed before. And then for the next 3 years or 4 years, I had mustard greens and collard greens coming up in places in my yard that were far away from where I planted those greens. And that was because of the birds. The birds would eat the seeds and then they'd poop them out. And then next thing you know, in the proper time, like the way the good Lord intended, it would pop up out the ground and provide me with food. I started planting perennials. You know, I had grapevine, pomegranate. What else did we have over there? Well, I got apples over there now, you know. And I learned from that a few things. Like having one of anything is a recipe for failure. You know, you want to try, if possible, to have more than one. My grapevine lasted for quite a few years, and I know absolutely nothing about growing grapes. You know, you need to prune at a certain time, fertilize at a certain time, and I'm sure I wasn't doing any of that right. And it's hard. Also, it's kind of hard to grow grapes in the South, and I was growing a what do they call it? A Niagara, I think, grape. So that's like zone 5 or 6, and I'm in zone 9A or B. So, but it did amazing, and it tasted delicious. The grapes that you could get that the squirrels and the birds didn't get, the grapes were awesome. But the plant died of some type of disease in the soil. Same thing happened with my pomegranates. Once my pomegranates started producing real heavy, I remember that was extremely sad for me, because the year I learned how easy it is to propagate pomegranates, all you need is to cut a branch about the size of your finger, okay? And where you see leaves coming off, you have little nodes on the branch. Like, hold on a second, let me show you. This, of course, is not pomegranate, but hold on, I'll show you something. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, let's pretend this is pomegranate, right? So where this is coming off right here, that'll be a node, right? So what you want is like 2 or 3 nodes. You want to cut it so you got 2 or 3 nodes. And well, I'm sure y'all not simple-minded. Y'all understand what I'm talking about. So I'll be with you in a second. So let's say you got two or 3 nodes, right? Let's say it's about that long, and you got a node right here, a node right here, and a node up there. Now, you plant it when you cut it, the one that is closest to the ground. So even if it's a horizontal branch, and it's growing out this way, right? You're gonna plant it so that this part goes down in the ground, and so you got to keep track of that. If you make a lot of cuttings, you got to keep a track of that. So plant it, push it down in the ground, and leave about that much sticking up. And you do it in the winter, and in the spring, most of your cuttings will branch out. So I learned that year how to do it, and that pomegranate died that year, and I didn't get a chance to get any cuttings off of it. And I probably would have been able to make 100 cuttings off that pomegranate tree, bush, whatever you want to call it. Well, guys, I'm a Muslim, and this is Friday, and time to go to Juma. I'm running late, so I'm gonna have to cut it short. All right, everything is messing up. All right, later. Love y'all for free.